Want to take your love for weather to the next level? Today, we're diving deep into how to ace that aviation meteorologist interview.
We're talking more than just forecasting, right? This is about showcasing your ability to analyze, communicate, and make those critical decisions that keep flights safe.
And we've got the inside scoop from RoleCatcher's Career Guide and their AI tools to help you navigate those tricky interview questions. It's like having a co-pilot for your career.
It's really fascinating. This career blends scientific knowledge with real-world application. As an aviation meteorologist, you're not just observing, you're analyzing the weather's impact on aviation, making sure every flight takes off and lands safely.
Talk about pressure. So let's unpack the interview process. One question that RoleCatcher highlights is, what inspired you to become an aviation meteorologist? Seems simple enough, but I bet there's a strategic approach to this one.
Absolutely, you're right. Interviewers, they want to see passion, not just a generic answer. Share a story that shows your genuine connection to the field.
Right, not just, I like weather.
Exactly. Maybe it was a childhood fascination with storms, perhaps a memorable flight experience, or even a mentor who inspired you. Just really let your enthusiasm shine through.
A story that says, this isn't just a job, it's my calling. Speaking of calling, what about those technical questions? RoleCatcher mentions, what are the most critical weather factors affecting aviation operations? How would you suggest tackling that one?
This is your chance to show off your knowledge of those aviation-specific hazards. Don't just list factors like, oh, thunderstorms or icing. Explain their impact. For example, thunderstorms pose a risk due to updrafts and downdrafts. These can affect an aircraft's stability, especially during takeoff and landing. Then, connect it to those mitigation strategies like, pilots rely on accurate weather information to avoid these storms. That's why it's so important.
So you're not just listing, you're connecting it to the bigger picture.
Exactly.
And RoleCatcher's AI can actually help you tailor your answers with these specific examples, right?
That's right. It's like having your own coach fine-tuning your responses to match what each employer is looking for. Really cool.
Okay, so we've talked passion, we've talked technical knowledge. What about those curveball questions? RoleCatcher's Career Guide mentions. How do you stay updated with the latest forecasting technologies? That feels like they're looking for more than just, I read the news.
Definitely. This is about showing your commitment to continuous learning. Mention those industry publications, conferences like the annual American Meteorological Society meeting, online forums, those kinds of things.
Need real specifics.
Exactly. You could even say something like, I'm excited about the potential of mention a specific new technology and how it could revolutionize forecasting.
Showing you're not just keeping up, you're ahead of the game. And I bet that plays into career progression too, right?
Okay.
RoleCatcher's Guide outlines typical career stages from entry level to those senior positions. Does staying current play a role in moving up?
100%. Whether you're starting out assisting senior colleagues or aiming for a leadership role overseeing weather operations at multiple airports, continuous learning is key. Highlighting that dedication in an interview shows you're invested in your growth and the advancement of the field itself.
So even seasoned pros should be ready to talk about how they're still learning.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. Now, what about the stress? It's aviation, it's high stakes. RoleCatcher points out that interviewers will often ask, how do you handle stress, especially in a high-pressure environment like aviation?
Right. They want to see if you can stay calm and make sound decisions, even under pressure. Sharing a specific example where you faced a challenging weather situation and how you navigated it, that really shows your composure. Don't just say, I work well under pressure. Give them an example like, during this blizzard, I had to analyze data so fast, adapt the forecasts, and communicate that critical information to air traffic control. Making sure those flights stayed safe. Show, don't tell.
Right. Those real-world examples really bring it to life. It's like, been there, done that, kept the skies clear.
Exactly. It really shows you have the experience, you have the composure. And speaking of experience, another question RoleCatcher brings up is, what experience do you have with developing and implementing safety protocols related to weather events?
That feels like it goes beyond just forecasting. It's the bigger picture of safety, right?
Absolutely. They want to see you get the impact of weather on the whole operation. So share those examples of protocols you've developed or maybe implemented. Did you help create guidelines for, ground delays during rough weather? Or how about contributing to emergency response plans?
Thinking beyond the immediate forecast to the actual operations. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Technology is everything in this field. And RoleCatcher says, how do you stay up to date with the latest weather forecasting technologies and techniques? Is a common one. It's moving so fast, how can candidates really show they're keeping up?
This is about showing your dedication to professional growth, your own growth. Don't just mention general resources, get specific. Maybe talk about a recent conference on a new forecasting model, or a workshop even about using AI for those weather predictions.
RoleCatcher's AI tools would be perfect for that prep, right? I mean, tailoring your answer to each job description.
Totally. The platform actually analyzes job postings, then it gives you feedback to make sure you're using the right keywords and hitting those requirements. It's like having a cheat sheet, custom made.
Okay, I love that. Shifting gears a bit, RoleCatcher mentions, what methods do you use to gather weather data and create forecasts? Seems pretty standard, but for aviation, anything specific they should emphasize?
You'll want to mention the usual things like satellite imagery, radar, and those weather models, of course, but highlight those that are super relevant to aviation. So for instance, you could say, I always make sure to analyze PIAR preps.
Ah, PIAR preps.
Yes, those real-time observations from pilots, they're crucial, because they give you localized data to refine those forecasts for other aircraft.
For those who don't know, pilot reports. It's like getting a weather update right from the cockpit. Essential.
Exactly. It really proves you understand those aviation-specific data sources.
Okay, let's talk about the question I think makes everyone nervous. Strengths and weaknesses. RoleCatcher has some interesting points on this one.
It's not really about listing traits. It's about self-awareness and that desire to always be learning. When you're talking about your strengths, connects them to the job itself. So like, my attention to detail. That's critical when I'm analyzing those complex weather patterns. Means I won't miss anything that could be a hazard.
Showing how it directly translates to success.
Right.
But what about those weaknesses? Nobody wants to tank the interview.
The trick is frame them as areas you want to grow in. Instead of, ugh, I'm a terrible public speaker, you can say, I'm very comfortable explaining things one-on-one, but I am working on those presentation skills to brief larger groups like pilots and air traffic control.
Showing yourself aware and proactive. Great advice.
RoleCatcher can actually help with this too. Their AI gives you feedback on how you're framing it. They might suggest different phrasing, to really emphasize that growth mindset.
It's like having a career coach right there with you, making sure your answers really shine. Now, for a question that requires some real honesty, how do you handle it when your forecast is wrong? Because it's bound to happen, right?
Oh, absolutely. Weather is unpredictable. They're not looking for perfection. They want to know you can learn and adapt. You could say, when a forecast is off, I take a close look at the data, figure out where I might have missed something, and use that to get better next time.
It's all about using those mistakes as learning experiences. Speaking of learning, let's touch on career progression. RoleCatcher's career guide lays out the stages from entry level up. What are some ways aspiring aviation meteorologists can stand out?
Beyond constantly learning, look for ways to broaden your skills. Volunteer for projects where you'll work with other departments, like air traffic control or airport operations. That kind of experience is gold.
So don't just stay in the forecasting room.
Right. And another thing, find a mentor. Having someone experienced to guide you is invaluable as you're building your career.
Like having a seasoned pilot to help you navigate those career turbulences.
I like that. Now we've focused on technical stuff and learning, but what about those personal qualities that make someone successful in this career?
What should candidates be ready to speak to?
Technical skills are key, of course, but those personal qualities really matter in aviation meteorology. Communication is huge. You have to explain complex stuff to all kinds of people, pilots, air traffic controllers, even airline executives.
Making sure everyone's on the same page about the weather.
Absolutely. And staying calm under pressure, that's non-negotiable. This industry is high stakes, things change fast. You need to think on your feet, adapt, and make good decisions even when it's stressful.
That blend of knowledge, communication, and a cool head, that's the recipe for an exceptional aviation meteorologist.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's like having a whole team in your corner cheering you on. Right.
Exactly. And, career growth, it's not just about moving up. It's about broadening your skill set, maybe specializing.
Oh, interesting. Like finding your niche within aviation meteorology.
Yeah, like focusing on aviation turbulence forecasting, or maybe now casting for airport operations. There's all sorts of directions you could go.
So many options.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, I did want to touch on something work-life balance. RoleCatcher's guide mentions that aviation meteorologists often have those irregular hours, evenings, weekends, holidays. How can candidates bring this up in an interview, if they're looking for that balance?
Well, it's true. This field often requires flexibility. There's no getting around that. But it doesn't mean you can't have a life outside of work. When it comes up, just be upfront about understanding the demands and your commitment to meeting them.
Right, being realistic.
Exactly. You could say something like, I know this role requires flexibility, and I'm ready for those evenings and weekends when they're needed, but I also value a healthy work-life
So
balance.
acknowledging both sides.
Exactly.
That's perfect. Okay, for our final descent, let's talk about that feeling a lot of aspiring aviation meteorologists are after making a difference. What would you say are the most rewarding parts of this career?
For me, it's knowing that you're contributing to the safety of every single flight. It's using your knowledge to make sure people get where they're going safely, no matter what the weather throws their way.
It's like being a guardian of the skies,
Mm.
using your skills to navigate those storms, ensure everyone's safe arrival. That must feel amazing.
It really does. If you're passionate about weather and aviation, there's nothing quite like it.
Well said.
Yeah.
As we come in for a landing on this deep dive into aviation meteorology, I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing all this incredible insight.
It was my pleasure. I really hope our listeners feel empowered to go out there and ace those interviews.
And for those ready to take it to the next level, I highly recommend RoleCatcher. Their platform, it's amazing. Personalized guidance, AI tools, tons of resources to really give you that edge.
Your co-pilot in your career journey. I love that.
Perfectly said. To all our listeners, safe travels on your career paths. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop reaching for those goals.